the phone. And the guy's going, Eddie? Eddie?
Eddie Van Halen strolled into this little dive bar in Anaheim, California, just looking to chill with a cold drink after grinding all day in the studio. After us had a live band on stage. Nothing wild, just some dudes covering old-school rock tunes. During their break, Eddie, always the polite legend, walked up and asked if he could jam with them for a song. The lead guitarist gave him a quick glance, saw a regular guy in jeans and a plain tee, and brushed him off like, "Thanks, but we already have a guitarist. We're good." Eddie just smiled, cool as ever, and replied, "No problem, mind if I watch from the crowd?" But then, out of nowhere, someone at the bar did a double take and shouted, "That's Eddie Van Halen." And in the next 5 minutes, that quiet night turned into one of the craziest bar jam stories rock fans still whisper about. It was a Friday night in September 1998. Eddie had spent over 12 hours locked in the studio, sweating over what would become the Van Halen 3 album. The sessions were brutal. Tons of technical riffs, layers of sound, and endless tweaking. His brain was fried, man. So around 10 p.m. he said, "Enough," and hit the road, needing air, space, and maybe a cold beer that didn't come with the smell of recording tape. He cruised over to a spot called the Rusty String, this low-key neighborhood bar in Anaheim. It wasn't some glitzy club or industry hotspot, just a regular joint known for live music on the weekends. Eddie had been there a couple times before, back when he could still fly under the radar. It was the perfect spot to blend in, have a drink, and just be human for a minute. He walked in wearing jeans, a black tee, and a baseball cap pulled low. The place had maybe 50 people inside, locals, couples, regulars perched at the bar. The band on stage was doing their thing, a 4-piece playing Stones, ZZ Top, and all the usual Friday night favorites. They weren't bad. The guitarist kept solid rhythm, the bassist held it down tight, the drummer kept everyone in line, and the singer, well, let's just say he had enthusiasm to spare. Eddie ordered a beer, leaned on the bar, and just watched. It felt good being anonymous, soaking in raw, unpolished music for once. The band was what every small-town crowd loved. Hard-working players chasing the good vibes, not the fame, just pure sound and swagio. After about 40 minutes, the band called for a break. They set their instruments aside and made a beeline for the bar. The guitarist, maybe a Dave or Mike type, average name, average vibe, left his guitar on a stand, a cheap Les Paul knockoff, but it did the job. Eddie felt that familiar itch. He'd spent all day chasing perfection in the studio, but right then, he just wanted to play. No pressure, no takes, no producers, just noise, energy, and fun. He walked up to the band, calm but excited. The guitarist and bassist were chatting about their next set list.
We get,
It's a pretty big operation, so it's kind of difficult to...
Eddie waited a second, then said politely, "Hey, you guys sound great. Mind if I sit in for one song? I play a little guitar." The guitarist turned around. His name was actually Derek, and eyed the stranger who'd interrupted their conversation. He had no clue who he was talking to, just a guy in a black shirt, holding a beer, asking to borrow his spotlight. Derek sized him up, a dude in a baseball cap, plain t-shirt, nothing flashy. He looked like every other weekend player who wanted a shot on stage. Derek had been through this before, guys who swore they could shred but ended up playing out of time, too loud, or trying to steal the spotlight, so he didn't even hesitate. "Thanks, but we already have a guitarist," Derek said, his tone cool and dismissive. "We're good." Eddie just nodded, easygoing as ever. "No problem. Just thought I'd ask." Tom, the bassist, chimed in, trying to sound polite but firm. "Yeah, we get a lot of people who want to sit in, no offense, but we've got our set worked out. Adding someone throws off the dynamic." "I get it," Eddie said, smiling. "Mind if I just watch from the audience then?" Free country, Derek muttered, already turning back to his drink and conversation. Eddie walked back to his spot at the bar, slightly amused. He'd just been turned down by a bar band, and for him, that was a first. He wasn't mad, though. He understood. Random people asking to join in were usually a headache. Most of them just wanted to show off, and 9 times out of 10, it went sideways. He picked up his beer and was about to take a sip when the calm night took a wild turn. At the other end of the bar, a guy in his 40s wearing a Van Halen World Tour t-shirt froze mid-sip, squinting at Eddie. Then he looked again, eyes going wide, and suddenly stood up. "Holy, you're Eddie Van Halen," he shouted, loud enough to stop every sound in the room. The bar fell silent. Heads turned. The band stopped mid-sentence. You could practically feel the air change. Someone whispered, "Did he just say Eddie Van Halen?" And then another voice echoed it. "Eddie Van Halen?" Eddie sighed quietly to himself, so much for keeping a low profile. He raised his hand and waved, smiling. "Hey, how's it going?" That one wave set off a storm. The bar exploded with excitement. Phones came out instantly. People rushed over asking for selfies, napkins, autographs, anything. Eddie handled it all with patience and grace, signing everything handed to him, laughing, taking pictures, and chatting like he had all night to spare. Meanwhile, Derek and the band stood frozen at the bar, faces pale, jaws dropped. "Did he just say Eddie Van Halen?" Tom whispered, looking terrified. Carlos, the drummer, blinked in disbelief. "Dude, that was Eddie Van Halen. And we told him, we already have a guitarist." Derek's eyes went wide as the realization hit. Oh my God, I told Eddie Van Halen no." The 3 of them stood there, watching the literal guitar legend of their generation signing autographs while they, an average bar cover band, had just turned him away. The room buzzed with energy, people snapping photos, cheering, and whispering about what just happened. After about 10 minutes, Eddie finished up with his fans, thanked everyone kindly, and sat back down with his beer like nothing had happened. Derek swallowed hard, knowing he couldn't just ignore what had gone down. He walked up slowly, every step feeling heavier. "Mr. Van Halen," he stammered, voice cracking, "I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you. I thought you were just, I'm an idiot." Eddie looked up at him, kind and calm. "You're not an idiot," he said warmly. "I'm wearing a baseball cap and a t-shirt. You had no reason to recognize me." "But I told you we already had a guitarist," Derek said, still mortified. "I told Eddie Van Halen that we didn't need another guitarist." Eddie chuckled. "Well, technically you were right. You do already have a guitarist," he said with a grin. "That's a factually accurate statement." Derek shook his head in disbelief. "But you're Eddie Van Halen." Eddie laughed again and pointed at him. "And you're Derek," he said, remembering the name. "You're a working musician playing a Friday night gig. Nothing wrong with that at all." Eddie smiled kindly and said, "You were just protecting your set. I get it. No harm done." But Derek looked like he might break down right there. His voice trembled as he blurted out, "Would you, is the offer still open? Would you sit in with us? Please." Eddie glanced at his half-finished beer, then at the small stage, then back at Derek, who looked like a mix of panic and hope. "You sure?" Eddie asked with a grin. "I don't want to mess up your set." "Please," Derek begged. "It would be the greatest honor of my life." Tom and Carlos were behind him, nodding like their heads were about to fall off. "All of our lives," Tom added, eyes wide with excitement. Eddie chuckled, the corner of his mouth curling into that trademark smirk. "Okay," he said finally, "but just one song. This is your gig, not mine. So, what do you want to play?" Derek froze. His mind went completely blank. "What do you play when Eddie freaking Van Halen offers to jam with you?" Every song suddenly felt too small, too simple, too wrong. What would you like to play?" he stammered. Eddie thought for a second. "You guys played Lagrange earlier, right? ZZ Top?" "Yeah," Derek said quickly. "Let's do that. I'll just handle rhythm behind you. You take the leads. It's your band." The band scrambled back to the stage, adrenaline pumping. But in the few minutes since Eddie had been recognized, the bar had completely transformed. Word had already spread. People from nearby bars and restaurants had rushed over. What was once a chill crowd of 50 was now a packed room of over 100, elbows tight, phones raised, and hearts racing. Derek took a deep breath, stepped up to the mic, and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, for this next song, we've got a very special guest joining us tonight. Please welcome Eddie Van Halen." The place exploded. Cheers, whistles, people screaming like they were front row at a stadium show. The tiny bar felt like it might shake apart from the noise. Eddie grabbed Derek's guitar, a slightly worn Les Paul knockoff, and adjusted the strap like he'd done it 1,000,000 times, which of course he had. He gave a quick nod to Carlos on drums. Carlos grinned like a kid on Christmas morning, counted them in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they kicked into Lagrange. That greasy ZZ Top groove filled the air instantly. Eddie started out light, just playing rhythm, letting Derek handle the main riffs. But here's the crazy part. Eddie Van Halen can't really blend into the background. Even when he's just strumming chords, his touch, his timing, the way he hits each string, it all sounded different. The sound was alive. Every chord had this sparkle, this energy, like the bar itself was vibrating with it. The band suddenly sounded tighter, louder, better. It was like every note snapped into place around him. Derek could feel it. His hands were shaking, but he kept the riff going, focused, proud, and absolutely terrified at the same time. When the first solo came up, Derek turned toward Eddie and gave a nervous nod, silently asking if he wanted to take it. Eddie smiled and shook his head, pointing at Derek. "You take it," he mouthed. Derek swallowed hard and dove in. His solo wasn't perfect, his fingers were trembling, but he made it through. The crowd cheered wildly just for him. Eddie grinned and kept strumming steady behind him, nodding in rhythm, making Derek feel like he actually belonged up there. Then came the second solo break. Derek looked at Eddie again. This time, Eddie gave a mischievous grin, stepped forward, and the room seemed to hold its breath. He hit one single note, just one, but the tone, the sustain, the way it rang out, it was magic. You could feel it. Every head in the room turned. Every voice went silent. That one note carried more emotion, more soul than most players could ever squeeze out of an entire solo. Then Eddie let loose a 10-second burst of pure fire, fast, fluid, every note clear and powerful, full of feeling but never just for show. The whole bar gasped in disbelief. It wasn't flashy, it was pure mastery, the kind of sound that made your skin tingle. And just as smoothly as he took over, Eddie stepped right back into rhythm, laying down the groove and giving Derek the spotlight again to finish out the song. When the song came to an end, the place absolutely erupted. The applause was deafening. People were screaming, cheering, banging on tables, completely losing their minds. Phones were up, glasses clinked, and you could feel the whole bar buzzing like it was plugged straight into an amp. Eddie smiled humbly, handed the guitar back to Derek, and said, "Thanks for letting me sit in. You guys sound great." Derek's mouth opened, but no words came out. He was overwhelmed, frozen in disbelief. "Thank you. Thank you so much," he finally managed, voice shaky but full of gratitude. Eddie patted him on the shoulder and stepped off the stage, casual as ever, heading right back to his seat at the bar to finish his beer like it was just another night. But the band stayed frozen where they stood, staring, speechless, stunned. They had just played with Eddie Van Halen. And not only that, he had let Derek, a regular bar band guitarist, take most of the solos while he played rhythm. except, of course, for those 10 seconds of absolute brilliance that reminded everyone in that bar exactly who he was. The band finished their final set, playing like they'd never played before. The crowd was electric, still feeding off the energy Eddie had left hanging in the air. When it was all over, Derek couldn't resist approaching Eddie one more time. "Mr. Van Halen," he said softly, "I just wanted to apologize again. When you asked to sit in earlier, I was dismissive. I judged you by how you looked, and that was unprofessional and disrespectful." Eddie turned toward him, calm and kind as ever. "You were protecting your band," he said. "That's what a good band leader does. You didn't know who I was, so you made a reasonable call. There's nothing to apologize for." "But I was rude," Derek said, lowering his head. Eddie shook his head. "No, you were direct," he corrected gently. "There's a difference. You weren't mean, you weren't insulting. You just said no. That's allowed." Derek smiled awkwardly, still humbled. "Thank you for sitting in anyway, and thank you for letting me play the solos. You could have taken over the whole song. Most people would have." "It was your gig," Eddie said simply. "I was a guest. Guests don't take over. And besides, you played well. You were nervous, but you pushed through it. That takes guts." "I was terrified," Derek admitted with a laugh. "I could tell," Eddie said, grinning. "But you know what? That solo you played, nervous and all, was better than most people play when they're totally comfortable. You should be proud of that." Derek paused, still trying to wrap his head around the night. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. "Why'd you even want to sit in with us? We're just a bar band. You're Eddie Van Halen. You could be anywhere, playing with anyone." Eddie thought for a second, then leaned back on his stool. "Sometimes the best playing happens in places like this," he said. "No pressure, no recording gear, no critics. Just music for the sake of making noise. I'd been in the studio all day chasing perfection, man. I needed to play something imperfect, something real and fun. You guys gave me that, so thank you." Derek would tell that story for the rest of his life. The night he told Eddie Van Halen his band didn't need another guitarist. Then watched Eddie play one single note that said more than anything he'd played in his entire career. And to top it off, Eddie had thanked him for the opportunity to jam. Later that same night, Tom the bassist logged onto an early online forum and typed out a post that would become legendary. "Eddie Van Halen sat in with my band tonight. We told him no at first because we didn't recognize him. He was so cool about it. Let our guitarist take all the solos. When he did play, it was only 10 seconds, but those 10 seconds showed us what real mastery looks like. Then he went right back to rhythm. Humblest rock star I've ever met." Years later, in 2020, when the world learned that Eddie Van Halen had passed away, Derek went online and posted a heartfelt tribute. "Back in '98, Eddie asked to sit in with my bar band. I told him we already had a guitarist. When I realized who he was, I was mortified. But he was nothing but gracious. He let me take the solos. He played rhythm except for 10 seconds. 10 seconds that reminded everyone in that bar what genius sounds like. Then he thanked me for letting him play. That's who Eddie Van Halen was. A true legend, one of the greatest to ever touch a guitar, who never forgot how to stay humble, kind, and real. Rest in peace to the man who turned every stage, no matter how small, into something unforgettable." Weeks passed after that night, but for everyone who'd been there, it never really ended. The rusty string had become something of a shrine. People who hadn't even been in the bar swore they were there. The bartender framed a photo someone snapped of Eddie on stage, smiling under that worn baseball cap, and hung it behind the counter with a little gold plaque that read, "The night Eddie played here." Derek, Tom, and Carlos kept playing their Friday gigs, but things were different now. Every time Derek plugged in his guitar, he felt that same buzz of energy Eddie had left behind. He practiced harder, paid attention to tone, touch, timing, everything Eddie had talked about without even saying a word. That one note, he'd tell people, taught me more than years of lessons ever did. Word spread fast around the local scene. Suddenly, the Rusty String was packed every weekend. People came not just for the beer or the covers, they came hoping for lightning to strike twice. Maybe another legend would walk in. Maybe someone else would get their shot. But the truth was, it wasn't just about Eddie. It was about what he left them with. That raw, honest love of playing just to play. A month later, Derek got a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a guitar strap, soft black leather, and a folded note that read, "Thanks for the jam. Keep making noise. EVH." Derek just stared at it for a minute, silent, goosebumps all over his arms. He showed it to Tom and Carlos that night before their gig, and the three of them just laughed in disbelief. "Man actually sent me his strap," Derek said, eyes wide. "How do you even play after that?" "Same way he did," Carlos said with a grin, "like it's just about the music." And so they did. Every show after that, Derek used the strap. He never bragged, never made a big deal out of it, but people noticed. There was something different in his playing, a looseness, a confidence. He wasn't trying to copy Eddie. He was trying to honor him, to play with that same joy that made everyone in that bar that night feel alive. Years later, the Rusty String closed down, but the legend only grew. The story of the night Eddie Van Halen played a bar in Anaheim spread far beyond California. Musicians still talk about it, how a rock god chose to jam with a nobody band, reminded everyone what true humility sounds like, and left behind a single note that never stopped ringing. Years later, people still talk about that night like it happened yesterday. The Rusty String might be gone, the bar lights long since dimmed, but the story never faded. It only grew louder. Musicians pass it around like a secret handshake, a reminder of what music is supposed to be, real, unfiltered, and straight from the soul. Derek kept that guitar strap Eddie sent him for the rest of his life. He never sold it, never hid it. It stayed on his main guitar, worn and faded, a little piece of history that carried the weight of that night. Every time he hit the stage, he'd take a deep breath and think of Eddie, the man who could have taken over the whole song but chose instead to lift him up. That humility, that grace, that spark, it changed everything. In time, Derek stopped chasing fame. He didn't need it. What he got that night was something bigger, a reminder that music isn't about ego or spotlight. It's about connection. A guy like Eddie Van Halen didn't just play guitar, he spoke through it, and that one night he shared that voice with a little bar band that never forgot. When people asked Derek about it, he'd smile and say, "You know, it wasn't just about him playing a solo. It was about him reminding us why we play at all, to feel alive." And that's what everyone in that bar felt that night, alive, amazed, and part of something timeless. Eddie's gone now, but that note, the one that made the whole bar go silent, still lives on. It rings in every guitar solo that dares to chase feeling over perfection, in every small venue where someone plays just because they love it, and in every musician who remembers that greatness doesn't need to shout, it just is. So if you've ever doubted your talent, your passion, or your reason for playing, remember this story. Even the biggest legends still look for the joy in imperfection. And sometimes magic shows up when you least expect it, even in a tiny bar in Anaheim. If you love this story and want more legendary moments like this one, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these rock stories alive, and we've got plenty more wild tales coming your way. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next video.